As a beginner videographer, I know you're constantly bombarded with the latest camera gear, and the thought of all the different things you have to buy to create great videos can be very overwhelming. So in this video, I'll be showing you the videography gear that you shouldn't buy if you're just getting started. I know this might seem a little bit controversial, but trust me, watch this video all the way till the end and you'll understand perfectly. So number one, a cinema camera. Creating great videos is not tied to the camera that you purchase. As a beginner, I'd advise against it by all means. First of all, cinema cameras are extremely expensive. Not to mention when you buy a cinema camera, even getting the other parts that are required to use that camera are very expensive. If you're a beginner, I'd advise for you to go for a much cheaper camera that you can purchase and start using immediately. With a cinema camera, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars on camera, your lens, hard drives for storage, all kind of parts that make the cinema camera functional. Cinema camera requires a huge team for operation. That's not the best for, a beginner that's shooting on his own. So definitely guys, if you're just getting started, I'd advise against purchasing a cinema camera. The next thing I'd advise against is purchasing a gimbal. Now this might be a little bit controversial even for me because I am a big gimbal user. I love gimbals. But here's the truth guys. When you're just getting started, you probably don't need a gimbal, especially based on the fact that you don't have experience. You are better off purchasing a tripod. Reason being, a gimbal encourages a certain type of shots. It has a certain feel and movement to it, but it's not necessary for everything. So when you're just getting started, you want to learn basic camera movement. You want to learn how to take static shots, and gimbals can be a little bit pricey. So if you're, bare on your budget and you really need to get the most optimal gear for your money, I wouldn't think a gimbal would be your first purchase. So definitely I advise for you to try and stick closer to your budget. As you get more experience, as you get more years under your belt, and you're used to using a tripod, used to shooting handheld, then you can always go to a gimbal. But gimbals are not the first thing I'd advise for someone to purchase. 3, a cheap tripod. So previously I touched on you needing a tripod. I advise against buying a cheap tripod. The reason for that is this. You're gonna buy a moderately expensive camera. Everybody has a different threshold for what they consider expensive. If you spend $500, $600 on a camera, you don't want to put that on a $50 or $30 tripod because you don't want your investment to fall and then break. So definitely you want to invest in a moderately priced tripod. Tripods can get very expensive on the more professional end, but I think once you spend at least $100 on a tripod, you get a fairly sturdy tripod. I've seen many times where persons put expensive cameras, moderately expensive cameras, even cheap cameras on cheap tripods, and they don't get the best outcome. You don't want your camera to fall, you don't want your lens to break. Just purchase a moderately priced tripod. I wouldn't tell you to buy an expensive one either, but trust me, if you buy a cheap tripod, you're probably going to end up with some kind of hazard. So definitely don't buy a cheap tripod. The next item I'm going to talk about is editing software. So editing software is something that I struggle with. I'm going to be honest with you guys. For a good little while, I had actually pirated Premiere. I currently pay for Premiere Pro, but if I was privy, I'd have actually gotten DaVinci Resolve. Now, this video is not sponsored by DaVinci, but DaVinci is actually a free editing software that you can download. They do have a paid version, but the free version has most of the features that everyone uses. When you pay for DaVinci, it's a one-time payment. Give or take, unfortunately, I am already used to Premiere Pro. I've been using Premiere Pro for quite a number of years. I don't think I'd ever switch over. But definitely if you're just getting started and you don't have an editing software that you're used to, because most of them do the same thing, I definitely say, get started with DaVinci. It's free, it's in industry standard. Yeah, it's amazing. Definitely, you don't have to spend a bunch of money purchasing Final Cut or purchasing Premiere Pro. You can just get started right away with a free editing software. And as I said before, DaVinci is one of the leading industry platforms right now. You don't have to spend any money on editing software when you're just getting started. And the last thing on this list is light. Now, this might be a little bit controversial because definitely you do need good lighting to make good videos, but you do not need to invest in lights when you're just getting started. I'd advise for you to actually go out there and learn to use natural light. Natural light is very important for videographers, and I mean content creators in general, because most situations you won't be setting up lights. You'll actually be using, the light that's available to you. Once you do have a little bit of experience under your belt and maybe some extra money, I'd advise for you to go out there and purchase some lights and some light modifiers. If you're just getting started, you do not need to break your bank on lights. Just get that camera and go practice out there with the light that is available to you. Not only is it important to not make unnecessary purchases, but it's also important to not make silly mistakes. So here's a video right here on the top mistakes I see videographers make when they're just getting started.